Trucker Dump for December 21st, 2010, Episode 60. Truckers versus Cops versus DOT versus Carriers.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com. Resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Tin Hut, soldiers. Todd McCann here. Sorry, trying to do a bit of military action there to prepare you for the battle. Today's subject is something that every trucker deals with every day. Actually, we don't so much deal with it as we tolerate it. So what is this? Why, it's the epic battle of truckers versus cops versus DOT versus carriers. There's a constant unseen battle going on in the trucking industry. It's like the movie Alien vs. Predator, only with two more factions that rear back their butt-ugly heads and roar. Perhaps someone should make a massive online video game about it. It could be called Truckers vs. Cops vs. DOT vs. Carriers. I'd ask all the geeks to play on the trucker faction. That way the proper groups would receive the bloody slaughter that they deserve. Let me explain what brought this podcast to fruition. I was sitting at a truck stop in Birmingham, Alabama when it all started. I had arrived there on a Saturday night and was still 150 miles away from my delivery location. The load didn't have to be there until Monday at midnight. I could have had the load to the receiver by 9 a.m. on Sunday, but I was planning on delivering it by 9 a.m. on Monday. Now why would I do that? My trucking readers already know the answer, so let's get the unwashed masses of non-truckers up to speed. Truckers can only work 70 hours within an 8-day period. This is called the 70-hour rule. This includes driving, loading or unloading, fueling, inspections, dropping and hooking trailers, etc. Anything that takes up time to do your job goes against the 70 hours. Enter the 34-hour rule. The 34-hour rule says that if a trucker is down for 34 straight hours, either off-duty, in the sleeper berth, or an uninterrupted combination of the two, they can reset their 70-hour work week. But why is this a good thing? Because after 7 days of driving, we only get back the hours we ran a week ago. So if I only ran 3 hours last Wednesday, that's exactly how many hours I'd have available to work this Wednesday, providing that I maxed out my hours every day. It's a bit more complicated than that, but you get the gist of it. Every trucker and dispatcher knows that the week before Christmas is busier than a Las Vegas pimp. There are lots of drop loads, relaying with other drivers, and canceling or switching of loads, all in the name of getting the driver home for Christmas. Seeing as how this all happened the week before Christmas, I wanted to be able to run as hard as possible that week. And that's why I elected to do my 34-hour restart instead of delivering as soon as possible. That's when my Qualcomm beeped at me. That's the satellite communication thingamabob. Yes, that's the technical name. Weekend Dispatch had a pre-plan for me and needed me to call in. After viewing the load of my Qualcomm, I figured out my logs and realized that I couldn't finish my 34 hours and still deliver my current load and pick up the pre-plan on time. I'd have to leave at about the 32-hour mark to do it legally. I called in and asked if I could finish the 34 hours and pick up the pre-plan 1 to 2 hours late. Some customers allow late pickups, but of course, this wasn't one of them. I was told that the 34-hour restart is a luxury, not something that's required. He was right, and I knew it. Still, most dispatchers would work with you on this. He said I was the only one in the area that could do the load. Yeah, I know, drivers. We've all heard that 1,000,001 times. I accepted my fate and figured I'd go ahead and deliver as soon as possible instead of waiting. That way I could deliver, drive to the pickup point, and get in a 10-hour break before my appointment time. Once loaded, I'd have a full 11 hours to run. That was my plan anyway. After driving 3 hours to deliver the load, I heard another beep. Assuming it was the load information for this all-important cancer-curing, God-ordained pre-plan, I eagerly read the message, only to find out that the load had canceled. I mumbled something that I'm not going to repeat, took a few deep breaths, and called in again. I was told that the load had been double booked. This means that two drivers had somehow managed to be issued the same load. When I expressed my frustration of being pulled off a 34-hour restart to cover the load, all I got was, "Sorry." Being the completely unselfish guy that I am, I asked why I was pulled off the load instead of the other driver, to which I got the intellectually stimulating answer of, I don't know. Good answer, crap for brains. Now to find a parking spot. There was only one tiny little truck stop with no real parking, and it was already jammed with trucks. I pulled out of the lot, hit my flashers, and pulled onto the edge of the road. Now keep in mind this is a side street, not a major corridor. Seeing as how my Qualcomm doesn't work when the truck is moving, I had to stop to send a message relaying my intention to drive to the next town to look for parking. I had been there for approximately 1 minute, no exaggeration, when a car pulled up with its headlights pointing at me. As I hadn't blocked the driveway, I figured the guy was just being a jerk. I went about typing my message. When he continued to sit there, I began to wonder if it was a cop. No lights or any decals were visible, but just in case, I held up my keyboard to show him what I was doing. He continued to sit there. Just as I was ready to get out to see if it was a cop, he pulled around to the driver's side, got out of the car, and yelled, yes, yelled at me, "You're parked in the street!" I said, "My keyboard doesn't work when the truck is moving. I was just sending a quick message, and I was just getting ready to leave. I've been here less than a minute. My brake isn't even pulled." He yelled yet again, "Why didn't you move when I was sitting there?" I said, "You were pointed straight at me with your headlights on. You've got no lights on the hood or on your dash and no visible decals. How's I supposed to know you're a cop?" That's when he got the look. It reminded me of Martin Lawrence as he's about to go into his, "Is this because I'm a black man?" tirade that is present in nearly everything he does. I don't mean this to be racist, but that's exactly what it reminded me of. Again, a yell, "Give me your license." I was waiting for a "boy" to finish out the sentence, but it didn't come. I handed it to him and he got back in his car. He immediately got back out and yelled again, "Get out of the street!" Where am I supposed to go? "I don't care, just get out of the street." He followed me as I pulled around to the fuel bay, and within 10 minutes he was back at my door with a ticket in hand. Once I figured out I was getting a ticket, I figured, what the heck, Todd, give him a piece of your mind. In a calm voice I said, "You know, I have a lot of appreciation for the job you guys do, but clearly you don't have any appreciation for what truckers put up with. We've got all these guidelines to follow and no one cares as long as I'm following theirs at the moment. My load unexpectedly canceled and I was looking for a place to park. As you can see, there aren't any spots here. Since I can't drive around without telling my company what I'm doing and I can't use my satellite unless I'm sitting still, I pulled to the side of the road. Yes, I know I should have pulled back into the fuel bay, but I was just going to be there for a minute or two." He said, "Well, that's not my concern. As far as the rest of these truckers, I'm fixing to go move them too." What a setup he had just provided. I said, "There's another thing. DOT has regulations too. If you wake those drivers up and make them move, most of them will be violating the DOT rules. But why would you care about that? If they get caught driving illegally, it's their license and money that's in jeopardy. But again, that's not your problem, is it?" By this time he was getting quieter, but he managed to say, "That doesn't change the fact that you were still breaking the law." Yes, I admit that, but you could have just as easily considered that I was only there for a minute and let me off with a warning. But no. He handed me my ticket and told me there was a small place to park about a mile up the road. Being the snarky guy that I am, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to say, "Gee, would have been nice if you'd told me that before giving me a ticket. I would have been happy to move. That's all I was looking for was for a place to park." I confess that I was overjoyed when I managed to kick up a bunch of dust on his car as I left. So that's the battle. The cops, the DOT, and carriers all have guidelines that truckers need to follow. Each thinks theirs is the most important. As long as the driver is complying with their rules, the world is a happy land of fluffy bunnies and chocolate streams. And why not? The driver is the only one taking the risk. Things are just as they should be. To end this on a somewhat happy note, I called the chief of police the following morning. I explained that the officer hadn't identified himself until he pulled around. I then relayed the rest of the story and asked if I was supposed to be able to read the officer's mind. He chuckled. The chief realized that I had a good point. He apologized for the incident and asked if I'd mind paying court costs if he could have the ticket reduced to a non-point violation. Of course, I agreed. Never mind that the court costs on a $30 ticket are $101.50. Jeez Louise, are these people cops or robbers?
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
Well, I got a few comments I'd like to share with you on The last podcast, that's the one called A Trucker's Home. That's the one about me being pathetic and living with my in-laws. So let's see what you guys had to say about it. NJ Catwoman says, I just came back on the road last February of 2010. Up until that point, I drove mostly local for 13 years. So yes, having a place to call home was and still is important to me. I have 6 cats. Holy cow. I'm totally owned by them. I do this dastardly stressful job to keep a roof over their heads. And I'm a stuffed person. Instruments, crafting materials, yarns, collectibles also occupy this space that I rent, that I get to see maybe 4 days out of a month. I wish I owned my own house. Had I not loaned the ex-husband more than $20,000 that I'll never see again, yeah, that probably wasn't very bright. Or had I not pulled out my 401k in a panic when I lost my job back in 2004, I may have had the money for a nice down payment. But at least I have a place to call home. Congratulations on becoming homeowners. Your home will build equity and hopefully be your safe haven and your refuge when you're old enough to retire. And if your health fails as you grow elderly, the sale of that home will pay your nursing home bills for a few years. You can have as many pets as you wish when you own your own home. You can paint the house purple with a yellow porch. You may have a mortgage payment, but you'll also have the freedom to decorate, expand, and express your creativity in this home. You are blessed. With home prices being so depressed right now, I hope you got one hell of a deal on her. Well, Christy, I understand the logic to owning a home, and I know it's a great time to buy. However, the deposit we put down was on a rental unit. Both of us will be in school soon, and if things go as planned, we'll be in 4 different schools in 4 different cities over the course of the next 6 years. So you can see why buying is not a good option for me right now. Sad, because I'm sure there's some sweet deals right now. Thanks for posting all those great reasons to own a home. And yes, cat ownership is one of my favorite reasons. But 2 is the max for us. 6? And if I ever paint my house purple and yellow, I'd sure hope someone has the decency to put a match to the gas line. Lisa Nowak wrote in with a funny comment, as she usually does. Cat ownership. Now that would be tough in a truck. I can see you with about 30 of them in the cab, and every time you stopped to fuel up, they'd start spilling out the doors. You look like the crazy cat lady on The Simpsons. Well, Lisa, if I thought I'd be trucking for the rest of my life, I'd definitely get a kitten so that I could get it accustomed to the truck. I think having a companion on board would make the trucking life more tolerable. Alton Wood says, Hey Todd, as an ex-driver, I can definitely relate to what you're saying. I've been off the road since 07 of 07 of 07. My lucky day, he calls it. Trucking is a tough way to make a living, even under the best of conditions, which sadly most drivers do not enjoy. That's pay, loads, and etc. Take care. I'd like to subscribe to your blog. Well, Alton, I believe I got an email saying that your desire to subscribe was a success. Thanks for that. I always appreciate anybody who subscribes. And I'm also glad to have experienced truckers aboard. Their comments either lead credence to what I've written or keep me in line when I'm wrong about something. I love having the input either way, so thanks. And all you other truckers, keep that in mind. FL Trucker Wife says, Oh yay, how exciting for your wife. Yeah, great. We hope to move out of this rental soon. We want to get land so we, read I, can raise chickens and goats. Okay. Well, I do agree with the first poster that now is a great time to buy. It's not a great time for everyone. We are so apprehensive about gaining a mortgage. Sure, we'll gain a house, but we'll gain the expenses along with it. Good luck in the new place. Well, I agree, Trucker Wife. Both of us are going to school eventually, and I'm convinced buying a house isn't a smart thing, especially since we aren't sure which college is going to be stupid enough to accept me. Ron Man says, Trucking is a strange beast for sure. Those of us that get it in our blood have a difficult time doing anything else. I feel you're wise to not buy, seeing as you aren't sure where you're going to school. Owning a home isn't a good thing if you aren't going to be there to enjoy it. In time, you'll know where the 2 of you want to settle down. Then it will be a good time to own a home. That's great advice, Ronman. Thanks for the input. Bob Kelson just simply says, Thanks for your great stories. Look forward to reading more of them. Well, you bet, Bob. We truckers are full of stories. You should never egg us on. Chris says, entertaining as always, and my point exactly about the house. Although Tammy doesn't agree with me, I stay with her at her parents' place when we happen to be home for 3 to 4 days a month. Well, Chris, I hear you. It seems to me if a person wanted to buy a home while driving a truck, it'd be smarter to take what you would be paying on a mortgage and sock it into a savings account. Why spend the extra money on utilities, insurance, and property taxes if you're rarely going to be there? Thanks for the comment. We men are usually right. Dang, I'm glad the evil overlord doesn't listen to this. Well, that about does it. I appreciate all your comments, as always. And here's how you can reach me to leave your own comments. So, what's your experience with this epic battle between the factions? Got a story or two of your own about inconsiderate cops, carriers, or the DOT? Or heck, even truckers? Just type DOT into the search bar at abouttruckdriving.com, find the blog post, and leave your thoughts. Or maybe you've got a comment on another subject, a question, or a suggestion for a future topic. You can email me at truckerdump@gmail.com. Or if you just want to say hi, give me a follow over on Twitter. I'm Todd McCann over there. That's 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's. So are you subscribed to the blog or the podcast yet? You don't want to risk missing an exciting episode, do you? Just subscribe and be done with it. Please? Thanks. So until next time, drive safe, stay out of my way.